Hey everybody, hope you're all doing good today. I just want to do another YouTube video today on a request I've actually got probably half a dozen requests about since I started the channel. And that is, people want to know about when I sunk my boat to win the Bassmaster Top 100 tournament on Bugs Island Lake some years ago. So I sort of want to take some time and sort of tell you the story here, how that went. But that is sort of like that one event has sort of like stayed with me more than anything else in my career. I've had so many people that have identified with that and have been fascinated by it, that it's sort of like, my claim to fame in fishing, that the uniqueness of that event. And it's sort of a neat deal. I sort of want to explain to you how it went down. But it was the third year I was fishing on the circuit. Struggling like everybody is starting out, and like I said, I hadn't had that much experience. I'd never seen Big Bugs Island Lake before, never heard of it before. This was back before we had any access to information. We didn't have any type of internet, or we didn't have any type of I didn't know anyone there, so the only thing I knew was how to get there. I had a road atlas map and I drove there, and when I got there I bought a map of the lake. I had no knowledge of this lake whatsoever, but it just sort of happened to be fortunate for me. And that's one of the things about how it's really neat how the universe works, is how it's like once you have passion and desire and intention behind something, like the universe will help manifest that in different ways. And I'd always wanted to be a professional fisherman, and this particular event was a turning point for me. But anyway, what happened in that particular event is there had been a hurricane come up the East Coast, and Bugs Island Lake was very high. The water was flooded into the bushes and the willow trees on that lake, which is very unusual for October. That's something that normally doesn't happen in October very much. And it just so happened that was my strong suit. Fishing back here in the Ozarks, Grand Lake, Table Rock, that type of stuff. I spent a lot of time flipping bushes, and I knew what to look for. So it just sort of ran into a perfect scenario for me. But anyway, in practice, I caught a few fish in practice flipping. The water was, in the bushes, maybe 3 or 4 feet. Perfect flipping situation. Caught a few fish in the bushes. I was fishing the lower end of the lake, and every day the water was dropping. Every day practice, every day the tournament, it was just kept dropping slowly every day. And the last day of practice, I had a really good day of practice flipping. And the first day of the tournament, water had dropped a lot. In the area I was fishing, the water was a little bit cleaner, and the bushes I was fishing were real marginal for having enough water in them. So I scrounged out 4 bass that weighed 9 pounds that first day, and was sort of in the middle of the pack after that first day. So the second day, it's like that night I was like, man, I've got to do something different. I said, that water dropping, I've got to make a move. So out of desperation, I just decided to, I looked at the map, I picked out a creek, and I said, man, if I can go up the lake further and get into a little bit more dirty water, maybe those fish will still be in the bushes. So I picked this one creek out of the lake. I'd never been there before, didn't know anything about it. And I said, I'm just gonna run to the back of this creek and start fishing my way out. So I ran up there that second morning of the tournament, and I got to the back of the creek, and there's a bridge across it. And the water was still high, and there was only like, I don't know, maybe 18, 20 inches of distance between the water and the top of the bridge. And I knew the water had been higher for at least the past 3 weeks, so I knew nobody had been back in there, because there's no way they could get in there. And I looked underneath the bridge, and I could see just willow trees, beautiful looking everywhere. I said, man, I got to get in there. So I thought about it. I said, man, I'd seen those advertisements at Ranger where they cut out holes in the boat and float, so I knew they'd float. So I reached back around there, pulled out the plug in my drain, pulled out the drain plug in my boat. Back then, the boats were flat on the back, so you could just reach back there and pull them out, pull it out. Took off my cowling off my motor, took off my windshield. I think I took my trolling motor off, I'm pretty sure, off the front. And sunk the boat as far down as it would go, and my partner and I got on our backs. He was on the back deck, I was on the front, and we actually pushed with our legs the boat to squeeze it just underneath the bridge, and we just barely, and I was scraping on the way in there, just barely made it in there. So got underneath the bridge, put the plug back in, bilged the water out, which took about 25 minutes to do that. And I just idled back in that creek and started looking around, and I pulled in there was this one small cove off the creek that was just completely lined with willows, and I pulled in there and started flipping 30-pound test line, big jig, big half-ounce jig, #1 pork frog, and I made one pass around this cove and caught almost 25 pounds flipping. And I ran, it was just like, I couldn't believe it. Nobody was in there. It was just unbelievable. And so that ran back into the weigh-in after that second day, and I was leading the tournament. Came from nowhere to lead the tournament with 25 pounds. And at this point, I was pretty confident, because even though it's not like I was getting a lot of bites, they were big ones that were back there. So ran back in there the second day. The water had dropped enough that second day where all I had to do was take the cowling off the boat. And I don't think I had to, no, that second day I didn't have, no, that was the third day. Second day is when I sunk it down. The third day I didn't have to sink it down because the water had dropped low enough. I just had to take the windshields and all that type of stuff and got back in there. And actually Denny Brower had got back in there. He wasn't in there the second day, but the third day he got his boat back in there and started fishing. But anyway, I went right back to that cove that I was fishing, and this particular cove, it was like the first cove, big cove, out of the main creek channel, like the back of the really old creek channel. So it was like a staging area for the fish to move in and out of the back of that creek. And so I started just working super slow, super methodically around there. I'm talking like at a snail's pace. And that second day of the tournament, I had 6 bites all day long. I weighed in 3 fish that weighed almost 15 pounds, and I lost one that was probably over 9, one about 7, and one about 5. I'd have had just a giant mega bag that second day of the tournament if I wouldn't have lost those 3 giant ones. And so I had the 14 pounds, came back in, and I'm still leading the tournament. I got like a 3 or 4 pound lead in the tournament. So the last day of the tournament, obviously, everything, leading the tournament, this is a life-changing event, a lot of pressure on me, got the camera boats on me. I knew this particular event could, change my life, if I won the tournament. And I basically committed to that little cove. I went back in there again, and I just told myself, I know there's 5 fish that live back in here. I just got to really fish slow and methodically. And I made, I think, 2 or 3 passes through that cove all day long and wound up catching 5 that weighed almost 15 pounds. Never lost any of that last day, and ran back in and won the tournament by like 3 or 4 pounds. But that particular tournament, like I said, I can't underestimate how it kept me in the sport. I won $50-some thousand in that tournament, which was a lot of money now. It was a lot of money back, in the 80s. And it allowed me to, get a house. It allowed me to get some sponsor support behind me, and allowed me to qualify for the Bassmasters Classic that year. Got qualified for my second Classic, and it was just, I just felt so fortunate to win that event. It was just unbelievable. And I look back, at this sport, and it's like there's so many events like that can make or break your career, that some anglers just are fortunate enough to get the breaks and some aren't. And I've had a really good long career so far. I'm still not ready to hang it up yet, and I've had a tremendous amount of just joys and great experiences in the sport, and I've had a tremendous amount of heartbreaks and disappointment and just things that would that just sinks you inside. But that's sort of the nature of the sport. I mean, if you fish it as long as I have competitively at this level, you're going to experience a little bit of everything. It's sort of part of it. You know, some people have been immune to that, but you sort of have to accept that that's going to come with it. And the reason and how you stay with it is you have that love and that passion for the sport. That's what keeps you in it. And but anyway, that's the story. Like I said, I'll never forget it. You know, I've had, you know, just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments over the years about people asking me about that particular event, and it was certainly a career-defining moment for me. So anyway, there it is. Hope everybody's doing good, and we'll check in later with another YouTube video.
And subscribe.
And subscribe, as Elliot says. Thanks.